Hi, this is Mark Soden. I'm here with Wonder Valley 14, and we're here with Jeff Boynton. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Oh, moving and grooving.
Yeah.
Our first question traditionally is, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
I am Jeff Boynton. I perform under the name Bent City, um, which was, I stole Circuit City's logo years ago and added Bent to it. I was Circuit Bent City, and then I was advised to not use because that intellectual property still existed and somebody owns it. So anyway, that's how I perform. I'm located in Los Angeles in the Highland Park neighborhood. It's about 4 miles northeast of downtown LA. And I am a lifelong musician. I started out as a cellist, but I became interested in electronic music at a very early age, at 8, like in 1964. I was my first exposure, and it was seeds were planted at a very early age. And I got into circuit bending about 18 years ago, and it was like when I discovered it, a light switch went off, and I knew it was a big thing. I knew it was a you know, and it was. It's been an 18-year obsession for me.
Well, I see that behind you you have some examples of your work, and
Yeah.
one of the things that I really noticed about your bent objects is they are so artistically presented, and they also include lighting uh, cues as to what the function is. It's really fantastic. I
Oh,
mean, that your attention to detail is pretty marvelous.
well, thank you. it's 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 a part of being an obsessive personality, I guess. Um,
Well, you're enjoying the good parts of the obsessive personality. So, how did you hear about Wonder Valley Experimental?
it's been on my radar over social media, and then I think it was really like the invite to participate this year that you know that caught my attention. I'm kind of oblivious often to what's going on around me because I'm deep into these projects, and I miss things, so I'm often very late to the party, so um, people
Well,
people often say, "You've never heard of that?" Like, no.
oh,
I live in my
it
own world.
it's a good place,
Yeah.
you know. So, I guess we'll get on to show and tell. This is where we talk about gear, process, shooting, editing, and locations. So, you can take on any or all of those topics.
Okay. Um, well, the my process. I mean, the thing that attracted me to circuit bending was that I was at a time when I was just beginning a relationship with my future wife, and and she had said that she wanted to collaborate with me, and she was a dancer with um, this choreographer named Rudy Perez, and his mentor was Merce Cunningham, who was John Cage's partner. To me that kind of got me thinking, well, if I want to collaborate and she's doing all this postmodern work and everything, I said maybe I'll get back into that experimental vein again. So this was um, back around 2003, 2004, and so I started thinking about music concrete and things, and I thought, well, it'd be really cool. She's a sign language interpreter, and she creates poetry in ASL. She incorporates ASL into her choreography, and so it got me thinking, well, it'd be really cool to have her interact with electronics. And I started researching, and it's like, well, no, I'm going to have to learn electronics. I don't want to do that. But in that process, I found an interview with Reed Ghazala. He talked about circuit bending because I was Googling DIY electronic musical instruments. And it's like, what can I do that's DIY where I don't have to be an engineer? And I read that article and I was circuit bending within 10 minutes. I asked Mona if she had any old toys, and I went down to Radio Shack, bought some test leads, and I was like, a light switch just went off. And and I knew absolutely nothing, which is part of the appeal, is that you don't have to. If you blow up a $2 thrift store toy, who cares? And so, but as time goes on, you begin to understand a little bit how things work, and you're poking around in circuits. So I started developing systems with more complicated devices. So I take a photograph of the circuit board, but then I go into Photoshop, and I follow. I'll notice a point, I'll mark that with a number, and I'll trace that back and eliminate all the other, common points from there. And I'll number the next point and the next point, and then I'll just systematically test point 1 to point 2, point 1 to point 3, and then I make notes of that. I print out a sheet of paper with the of the circuit board with the numbered system on it. The numbers are just arbitrary, but I try all the combinations and I just make notes, and I try sticking different capacitors in between to see if they change, the bending and that, and so I build a lot of breakout boxes, and so I will design, once I know what all the functions are going to be, I'll design a panel in Illustrator, I'll print it out on photo paper, and then I have another one that says where to drill all the holes in a sheet of acrylic, and that's where I mount all the hardware. And I can actually show you here. This is a project that I'm working on now. And I'm going to disconnect all these for a moment. These are like my test. Hard to get these off. Yeah, so this, the panel design, all the, the graphics and everything are done in Illustrator and printed out on photo paper. And then, the photo paper goes on the back of this. This is just a sheet of 1/8" acrylic.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
easy to drill.
That's
nice.
easy to drill. I work at California Institute of Architecture in the laser department sometimes. And sometimes I just laser cut. I can export a file out of Illustrator, a CAD file, and I can just cut the piece, and that's much more quicker and more precise. But in the meantime, I have a drill press, but then I mount all the switches and hardware and everything. And, and then all these connectors here all connect to the bottom panel.
So you got ribbon cables going between the two.
That's just for testing. Normally, in the normal function of this, these connectors all line up. So I have the 25-pin connectors here, and they line up. So I just place this on top of there, and all the connectors line up. And so
amazing.
That way, yeah. So otherwise the wires get packed in there so tightly, it's really difficult. So that, the whole system that I have of creating, breakout boxes and things like that, all follow that kind of same procedure. Like this is a circuit bent happy kid guitar, so all the wires run through these posts here, but I followed the same process for building the panel,
So does that light up when it's in operation?
Yeah, let me actually see if I can hang on just a second here. Oh, all right. I might actually be in luck here. Let's see. Oh, this one actually gets, so on this one, each one of these LEDs actually affects the pitch of the instrument. And it also triggers sound, so it's like re-triggering itself. But it's also designed to be triggered from. So I'm gonna have to disconnect a few things here. I'm somewhat hobbled. I just I took an 8-foot fall off of concrete and shattered my right heel and broke my right ankle. I did this about a month ago, and so I'm in recovery mode. And thankfully, it could have been much worse. You know, I probably had the best case scenario for that. But anyway, so this device here, I forget what the name of the original toy is. It's like a Fisher-Price toy. I just call it the animal slider because it's got these little guys on it. But what I thought was like really about this is, so it's got like 4 different songs, like the Mexican Hat Dance and When the Saints, Oh Susanna, and Round Robin, Rockin' Robin, and Mexican Hat. But I'm like, when you circuit bend it, these lights actually re-trigger sounds and it starts chopping up the demos. And so it just creates really weird loops. But then I thought it'd be really cool if I could hook each one of these up to an output. So now, like the A button is triggering this output and the B key is triggering that, C, D, and E. And then these goes out and I can trigger 5 other instruments off of these lights.
So it's a sequencer. You've got a sequencer
Kind of
that's built
kind
in.
of a sequencer. It's kind of like a looper in a way. And so I can get like these really orchestral kinds of textures going, like really thick. So all these other instruments can be triggered by this. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is actually, so these are actually talking to each other now. And you can see like this, the A light here is triggering the sounds on this one.
Wow. It's like a big circuit bent modular synth.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I have all these other ones. So I call this the amalgamatron because it creates like so this is the amalgamatron master module. And then these are called amalgamatron satellite modules. And so I can have, these are interchangeable. You know, all I have to do is design something that will take an external pulse and be triggered by it. So.
Wow.
So that's, yeah, I haven't got the whole orchestra set up, but I've done a number of these.
So I have a lot of appreciation for not only your attention to detail constructing this stuff, but if you didn't learn engineering, I mean, you didn't learn electronics from all of that, you certainly learned engineering, because you know how you've laid out all this stuff is amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's you know you know, in the times we live, you know, the ability to access information is is so key to being able to, move ahead quickly with this stuff. I remember years ago, I was thinking, I want a circuit where I can flash an LED and I can make it go faster or make it go slower, but I want to change the duty cycle too. So the amount of time it's on, and off for each cycle, and all that stuff. And so I went online, researched it. I had the parts, and I put the thing together. And it's like, it was like probably 2 hours from the time I said to myself, I want to build a circuit that'll do this. And then in 2 hours, I had it made, because I went online, and found I didn't have to like go through a library. It's like being able to access information. I know this, we all take this for granted right now, but
Well, it wasn't always like this. I mean, we
yeah,
would be getting answers for things involved going to the Radio Shack or finding some guy in the neighborhood that had a ham radio or something that knew how to do stuff.
yeah. And, and so as the years went by, like I went from, knowing nothing about electronics to now I make schematics for all my stuff. I can read schematics. I create schematics for all my designs so that I can recreate them. I put microcontrollers. I use Arduino to program microcontrollers. So
Right.
I've been learning how to code. I've been doing that for about 8 years now. So it's like I can add a lot of additional functionality, and to me, it almost feels more like hacking than circuit bending these days. Although I still do circuit bending, but I'm doing a lot of my own. I kind of think of circuit bending as primarily using the electronics in the device itself, and adding pots, and shorting points within the circuit, which is great. It's awesome. That's how I started, but then, I add so much additional circuitry and functionality of my own, it's, it's more than what, circuit bending is when I first started doing it.
Right, right. I had a quick question about where people that want to hear this could find you on the internet.
I have a SoundCloud, which is Jeff Boynton.
Okay.
And I have a Bent City YouTube channel, and I have a lot of I have performances. I have links to performances, and I have demos of my bent instruments too.
Oh, that's great. We will be including that below.
Yeah.
And what other projects are you working on now aside from healing your ankle?
Well, yeah, this is the beast right now. This is the one I've been showing you, and this is trying to kill me. This one is out to finish me off. I had this idea last September. It's like, oh, this is something that'll be really easy to do, and I have this one thing. You can see a picture of it there. It's the Wiggles guitar. It came out in 2003. They're pretty abundant in thrift stores. They're easy to find. They made a lot of them, and it became like a favorite target of mine because that's what the toy originally was like. It became a favorite of mine because it re-triggers its own sounds, and so I was like, well, that's really great. And I said, well, it'd be really cool. It's like every time this thing re-triggers, it can be sent a pulse out and it can trigger other devices. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like the amalgamatron idea of like this one thing that would, be able to trigger other devices. But then I added Arduino functions. So it's like when it gets a pulse, it'll randomly pass a variable percentage of the pulses, or there's another modulo function which says it'll pass all of the pulses, every other, every third, every fourth, up to every 12th. So each one of these has its own. So these are ports for the satellite modules here, and then the controls for each one are here. So I made like the controls that would be common to everything. I just put them in here. So like this is an output. There's a little, I have a little internal speaker for monitoring each one. So I don't have to repeat, I don't have to reuse those parts on every module. It's like the stuff that I know is going to be common to every one. It's all here. So it just depends on what I plug in. And then the module specific functions will be on the module itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then each module has a microcontroller in it that handles the random functions and the pass every X pulse. And then there's also, it also can be triggered by external audio. So I can put a microphone on a live drummer and that'll trigger the sounds. It can be triggered by internal clock, or it can do the self, re-triggering from the master module part, which has the Wiggles guitar in it. So anyway, these are just interchangeable. So I can rehouse any number of different devices, and
Wow.
and they'll each have and then the control for the Arduino functions are all, they're all going to be pretty much the same. So they're all here. So there's like the sensitivity to external audio, internal clock, triggered by external audio or triggered by, yeah. So the satellite modules will, there's like a 15-pin connector, so they'll just
Hook right on.
yeah, just like that.
Wow.
So this
Amazing.
is actually, I just started building this today. This is the first satellite module, but
Oh
yeah, I forgot it's not attached. So anyway,
well,
so yeah, this thing this 6 months later, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, that's quite a project.
Brutal.
Let us digress into a different direction. A long time ago, I was told about you by a friend of mine, Kitty, who was doing costuming for a Russian circus. And she said, "You got to meet this guy, Jeff Boynton. He has these really amazing toys." And so I just wanted to hear the story of how you joined a Russian circus doing circuit bending.
Well, and that, what happened was, I had developed this obsession with Russian composers in the late 90s, and it was just like the early 90s. It was a mystery to me why but I was just really, really obsessed with this. And so I had this job in the late 92 that I got canned for making a mistake on a job, and I was like, we were in a recession at the time. I was really freaked out about that. And but then, but I had another job offer, and I had this feeling. It's like, I do not have to take this job. It's like, I have no income. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent, but it's like, I feel it in my bones. I don't have to take this job. And then a couple weeks later, these producers said, yes, we're doing this show with the Bolshoi Circus from Moscow there, and they're doing their annual Japanese tour. And we don't like our composer. We want you to do the music. So I've been, and obviously I was getting ready for this gig. I was listening to all kinds of Shostakovich and Prokofiev and Stravinsky and Mussorgsky and all those cats, And so I actually wasn't doing circuit bending at this time yet, but I did do. I was doing some synthesized. I was doing orchestral tracks with MIDI, virtual orchestra kind of thing. But I was doing electronic stuff too. I was doing some electronic scoring and things like that. And the whole thing blew my mind. It's like I was getting ready for this gig. I was ready for it, and I knew I could feel it. it was a real spiritual experience. And I could get into like the backstory on that, but it would take a long time. But I was definitely kind of working on being in tune with the universe. It was like I had this overwhelming feeling of and then when I was done, I actually ended up going on the tour. So it was like an 11. They said, "Hey, I just figured I'd record the music, give them the DAT
Right.
tapes, and they would just play them in the show." And then said, "Hey, you want to come on the tour and run sound?" I go, "What? 11 city tour, 3 months around Japan with the Russian Circus? Why would I want to do that?" which of course I did, and that's where I met Kitty. And Kitty and I became very good friends. And yeah, and then I ended up while I was there, the Russians taught me the Cyrillic alphabet, and I had a phrase book, and I was like really interested. And I got back to LA, and I started studying Russian. And I ended up I went to Minsk in Belarus and Moscow, and I spent like 2 months and just spoke nothing but Russian for 2 months.
Wow.
It was fascinating to me because I grew up, as a Cold War kid. I was born in '56. And, to me, I was always fascinated as a kid, like, what's behind the Iron Curtain? What's that? I had all this, you didn't see a lot of photos. It was just like this, that whole secrecy and paranoia and fear and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to be actually flying into Russia for me was like, it was, it didn't occur to me till I'm actually landing at the airport. I'm going, this is like a childhood fantasy of mine to be actually going behind the Iron Curtain and seeing what's there.
Were you there before the wall went down?
No, this was a few years after, and I got out. I was actually living. Well, I mean, I was staying with friends a few blocks away from the Russian White House, and in '93, in the fall of '93, I don't know if you remember, there was that coup attempt, and they're firing artillery into the Russian White House. And this is like this is like right after I left. This
Wow.
whole coup attempt, with Yeltsin and everything was going down. So yeah, I just missed that stuff. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's
but yeah,
yeah.
this is in '93, so that was 4 years after the
Mm-hmm.
wall came down.
Yeah, I happened to be in Europe in '79 and took a train to Berlin, and we were going through the eastern sector, and it was pretty profound in that uh, there was not a lot of color. A lot of the color that we have here is advertising, but there was none. It was
Yeah,
just not a lot of color. It was
yeah,
really a very different situation.
yeah. I found Belarus and Russia to be similar. There's kind of a grayness to it. And I think there's a bit of that. I think there was a little bit of an intimidation factor in the architecture. That stark
Yeah,
architecture
well,
that you get from
yeah, they like their concrete.
yeah, exactly.
They like it. Just don't paint it. Don't put stucco on it. Just
Yeah,
have it right there.
yeah, yeah. And it's a serious place. And like Russians, they don't smile a lot. It's a cultural thing, but they just
I
they
have
think
a
it's odd that Americans smile so much in public, and but it's
I have a friend who lived in Russia with his soon-to-be wife for a while, and she recommended to him that if he wanted to be accepted as a Russian, he should stop the smiling.
yep, yep, yep. Yeah, they kind of see us as children, and we're obviously we have I think Russians and Americans are very compatible. We had so much fun on that tour. We partied so much. It was like there were a lot of you know American Russian romances going on. I had one. My girlfriend was a dancer. She lived in Minsk, so that's why I was in Minsk, and but we just got along fine. And I, I the Russian sound man and I were like this right away. We just became fast friends. You know, he calls me "Mój japonski brat," which means my Japanese brother. I found my brother in Japan.
Oh, that's so awesome.
You know, we're
Wow.
similar age, you know, so we're familiar. You know, he would tell me, you know, we'd talk about like, you know, long-haired people in America in the 60s getting called commies, and he said a cop came and snipped his ponytail off and called him a capitalist, you know. It's just like this inverted thing. It's just, you know.
Wow. Well, on that happy note, I think we've pretty much covered it. So
Yeah.
thank you, Jeff. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you for
This,
having me.
this is Mark Soden for Wonder Valley Experimental 14 signing off. Jeff will be on the virtual set on April 1st. So thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Take care.